Okay, so starting to cut your key, first thing we are presented with is the customer's key. So we're going to put that in our jaw. We're cutting a single-sided key here, the most standard key there is. We put it in and we put it on the flat side. So the bottom of the key is now riding on the bottom of the jaw. I put that in and I just nip that up a little bit. Now I'm going to go over, change my jaw to the corresponding jaw, and do the same over this side. Now I'm going to put on my safety goggles. I'm going to line up my shoulders. If you can see that there, I can see this one's touching, but this one is not touching. Very important to make sure you always line up the shoulders. If you're not, your key's not going to be accurate. Now we go for turning on the machine. We've got power, okay, and we enable the cutter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to cut it. Hopefully you can see it from there. I might actually move the camera down just a little bit so that you can get a bit of a bird's eye view of actually what's going on here. It's probably about the best I can do there. Maybe down a little bit. Okay, so to do this we're going to start off, and I'm going to start off from the shoulder. From the shoulder. I'm going to go into the key and I'm going to cut along. Now, depending on how deep your key is and how deep these grooves are, you might want to do it in one pass and go slowly, or you might want to do it in two passes and go a little bit faster. But take note of the direction. Our particular key machine here has slight angle cutting here, which means we can go backwards on the key, but initially we just want to go forwards, take the meat off, and then go over it one more time, perhaps going backwards and forwards just a little bit, because our key machine will allow it, and that will allow us to cut the key. If you do not have these slight angle grooves on your key cutting machine, don't go backwards, only go forwards. And forwards meaning that you start off in the left position and you work your way to the right. For an example, on this particular key machine. It is different for various key machines, but looking at the cutter you can quite easily tell which way you start, and all of the time you start from the shoulder and you work your way to the tip of the key. So we're just going to do that now. Okay, so power's on. The machine is now dangerous. We want to keep everything away from the cutter, where we don't want to be cut. So we lift it up into the key, and the pressure that I'm putting on there is probably about a half a kilo or so. It's not much. It's enough to keep it firmly pushed up against the key, but not too much. Okay, so you don't need a lot of pressure. Okay, I'm just going to move this down a bit to see if I can get the closer view for you. That's probably about the best we can do. As you can see, when it's actually cutting, you don't have much room to see. And what people always do is they look at the tracing side, which is this side over here. So if you look at that side, you can see what's going on. Okay, so I start from here. And once you get to the end, it's important to do the ramp. Okay, now because this machine has these things, we can go backwards a little bit, but if it didn't, I would bring it back to the start again and I would go over it. Now I can hear that it's not cutting anything now, that's cutting. I go backwards over my valley just a little bit. Now I drop it back, go over one more pass just to make sure. That's cutting just a little bit, but not much. And there we have it. Now, first thing we do, turn the machine off. Now our key is cut. So I'll just quickly simulate how we did that. We started from this point here, and then we went over the key. Then we dropped it down, came back, went over the key. Because I have the machine that can go backwards, forwards, I went over these valleys just a little bit. But I never cut in this direction. Come this direction, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. These are your most important parts where the pins actually are to get right. So So they actually have to be right or it won't work in the lock. So that's cutting a single-sided key. Once the key is done, you move on to the next step. Okay, so in this example I'm going to use the machine as a manual machine. Semi-automatic means you've got something to feed it left and right. Automatic means that you don't need to feed it at all. You simply just put the key in and push the button. We'll do an automatic one next. So we've done semi-automatic to start off with. So I've loaded my key, put the shoulder in, moved over here, slid it forward, tighten it up, drop the shoulders back. Now I need to disengage this carriage here. So now I can move it as a manual machine. A lot of smaller machines are used as manual machines. So I turn it on, look at where my hand is, it's on the left, it's away from the cutter. If the machine was handed differently, I would have my hand doing all the work on the safe side. So I start up against the shoulder, I lift it up, just move it slowly. Now if you hear that, it is taking off a bit too much meat, so you just do half of it and you can come back and get it on the next round. Now basically, if you can see the key, it's a bit jagged at this stage. We've only really cut it halfway. So I'm going to go back to the shoulder and start again. Very carefully going to the peak of the mountain and down into the valley. Doing the tip, dropping it down. Just doing it one more time. Backwards, forwards in the groove. 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 And last one. Then just going down that ramp on the front. Now we're not taking off any meat off the key, so I can go backwards, only with this particular type of machine. And there we've cut it in manual mode. There's the key. Now we move on to the next step. Okay, so here we have the Bianchi 105 automatic key machine. This one comes with a shield, but it's still recommended to use safeties, just for safety. You have your tracer on one side, you have your cutter on the other side. So the same rules apply. When you put your key in, make sure it's straight and flat, give it a slight tighten. You put your blank on the cutter side, slide it in, give it a slight tighten. Now here are our shoulder guides here, and I can see that I need to bring this one back a little bit. Make sure they're lifted all the way. Check your original key and then tighten it up. So that's now at the shoulder, keys in, it's tight. Lift, keeping your shoulder guide up, pushed all the way forward, make sure it's in the vise, tighten it up. Most importantly, drop them down. They do automatically drop down on this machine, but as a rule you should actually drop them down yourself as well. Turn the power onto the machine, and this is why I like this machine so much. You don't have to do anything. You just push the button, hold it down for about 5 seconds, and it'll start cutting. Now this particular cutter can go forwards and backwards. It is designed for that. So it's gone forwards, so it's gone backwards to start off with. Now it's going in the forwards direction. One of the benefits of a machine like this is it's going over the key accurately with the same amount of pressure the whole way through the key. So if you're finding your keys are a little bit high or a little bit low, you can adjust it and get it exactly perfect. So there's no moving the carriage, there's no pushing into it. Simply load it, push a button, and the key machine will do the rest. There's your key. Now you move on to the next step of buffing it. I'll show you also the silver while we're here, just in case this is a type of machine that you have. These are the two most common automatic key machines, and they're very good key machines. And a lot of people who are just starting out cutting keys do prefer to have an automatic key machine. They're about $5,000, but they're worth every cent, allowing anybody who wants to cut keys to be able to cut keys. So the first thing we do is we put our key into the vise with the tracer on it. This is our tracer, this is our cutter. So we put that in there just nice and softly. We'll put one in the cutting side nice and softly. We lift up our vices, shoulder guides, and these ones have ones that move at the same time. When I move this one or this one, they both move. So I loosen off my key, I slide it forward, make sure it's in the vise properly. I move this one all the way over to the key, slide my key all the way forward, tighten it up, drop them down, You do have to wear safety goggles again for this machine. Turn the power on and push the button. Now once again, the pressure is already automated, so you don't need to worry about that. The speed, the travel, all that's automated, you don't need to worry about that. And this particular machine only passes over the key once. It uses a different type of key cutting blade, and it's sufficient just to pass over the key once. Extremely fast. There's our key. Now to the next step of buffing it. Okay, so now we're going to do finishing the keys. Here's our keys that we've cut. First thing we want to do is we want to check the ramps will allow all the pins to go over them. If we find that there's a straight edge anywhere, we're going to actually need to file that off. So just by putting it there, I can just double check that all the edges will allow the pins to ramp in and ramp out. If you find that you do have a straight edge anywhere, you've got to keep these heights here, actual heights or the cuts or the depths all the same, but you can take away the ramps and it won't affect the actual key itself. So if you look at this key here, okay, see this first ramp here? If this was vertical, I would put a ramp on it, but then again I can also just remove that, making sure that I don't take off any meat on this top one. And also with your front ramp here, it has to allow the pin to slide in. So I can give that just a slight file as well. This is not necessary most of the time, but it is important to inspect your key that there is good ramps for the pins to slide all the way in, slide all the way out. And if there's not, you simply need to get a file and just give them a quick file. This is a round file, impressioning file. Or you could just use a simple little flat file like this. And just give it a little file. Not necessary all the time, but that is what we do to make sure the key goes into the lock and out of the lock properly. What you're trying to avoid is any straight edges here or here. If there's a straight edge here, the key will go in and jam up here. If there's a straight edge on this back side, the key will go in, but when you go to pull it out, it'll get jammed. And now we're going to move on to the last and final step, which is buffing. Most importantly, safety goggles are definitely recommended with this machine as well. So you get your key, and what we're going to be doing is this is a nylon brush. You can use wire brushes as well. I prefer nylon. A lot of key machines use nylon, a little bit softer on the key. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using our hand, which is supported there. Okay, we're keeping away from this. We don't want to get drawn in there. No loose clothing, no bangles or anything that can get sucked in. We need to be strong and firm and in the safe position. So we're going to start from the shoulder and just work our way across, just like that. Then we're going to rotate it, and we're going to go in and just go over the top on a bit of an angle. What we want to do is get rid of all of those sharp splinters, so that when we give a customer a key, there's no sharp splinters. Because if you give a customer a key as a professional key cutter and they get a splinter, you've done a pretty bad job. Nothing worse than getting a splinter that's very hard to remove after you get a key cut. Not leaving a good impression on the client. Right, so we start off the machine, make sure we're in a safe spot. Just starting at the shoulder, moving my way all the way across. There we have it. We can see a slight edge or buffing edge now on that key, and we can see it there, which means all the splinters have been removed. And I'll show you a little bit closer on what's actually going on here. One more time. You can see all those filings on the key now. I didn't actually get right down into the valley, so I'm going to lift it up a bit more. Okay, and then they're all buffed. Be careful, you don't want to over buff. If you over buff with a wire wheel, you will actually take the key down. So with a wire wheel you would go a little bit softer, with a nylon you can go a little bit more pressure. There we have it. You just want to take those sharp edges off. You don't want to change the height by pushing too hard into the machine. And the way I was doing it there is I was starting off there. I could actually see the little dags on the edge of the key, and I could just tilt it down or push a little bit harder to get into all those grooves. Okay, so we're all done now. We've duplicated our key. Now we need to do the visual check. What we're checking for is, do we have any dags on the key or any sharp splinters? No. Is everything looking the same as it should? Yes. Do the keys correspond with the other person's key? One way of cheating, you can actually put them together like this and check as well, just like that. And you can see how close or accurate they are just by putting one over the top of each other. But most importantly, what you're looking for is, as we said previously, is you want to make sure that the pins can go down these ramps into the valley and come back up again, all of them. And you want to also make sure you've got a good lead edge on the front as well. A quick little visual check will save you time and recalls or any problems from the customer having a bad key and having to come back. So a visual check after you've finished buffing it is always recommended.